It's
Okay.
okay.
Kumlan the Black Gemara. We're up to Moed Katan Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, what you're permitted to do a Chalamoid. And the last thing we learned was that you're allowed to trap these dangerous rodents that are threatening your crop. And we talked about the moles or the bats, owls, and mice, field mice, and so on. And we made a distinction, according to one opinion at least, between a field of trees or a field of grains. And we said, according to Tanakama, there is no distinction. You can do whatever it takes to trap them, and on the Chalamoid and the Shemitah. And according to Chachamim, it depends. They pose a far greater threat when it comes to a field of trees, and then you can trap them any way you want, versus a field of grains that you have to do something which is a little bit of a shinui, a little bit of abnormal, because they don't pose such a grave threat. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer Mizdei Ilan Kedarkai Umizdei Halavan Shaloi Kedarka. Field of trees you can trap them normally, but a field of grains you can't. Don't remember learn. Tates Kedarka. What do you mean trap them normally? How do you trap these threatening species? Chayfer Guma, you dig a hole in the ground, but Toila Bamatsuda, you hang there, suspend your net, and then they fall into the hole, and then you trap them in this net, and you do whatever it is to destroy them. What's considered an abnormal way? They have these little underground little caverns. Noyed shapud, you take a spear and you start poking in the ground. Umake bekurdim, and then you bang it with a hammer to go deeper into the ground. Umerado adama, and it makes the ground tremble. And then what happens is basically that the cover of the cave falls in on top of these threatening rodents, and then you crush them and you kill them. So that's an abnormal way. Tanya learned. When do we say that you have to do an abnormal way by field of grains? If it's next to the city, neighbor to the city, it's distant from the field of trees. But if it's neighboring a field of trees, and the field mice don't respect boundaries, then even you can remove them the normal way, not so much because they're threatening the grain, the crop, but rather because they're threatening the trees. So they love they'll walk out from here and go into the neighboring field. Then we learn the Mishnah, Mekarin is a pity, you're allowed to cover over a breach. If part of it a partial wall falls down or something else, you're allowed to repair it on Chalamoid. And a Shemitah L'chatchila, you can build it the normal way. Right? And as we'll explain in a minute. Even though if you're building a normal wall, it looks like you're protecting your crop, and on Shemitah everything has to be hefker, you're allowed to. Says the Gemara. Mekarin appears to be Moed, you're allowed to give a repair breaches or Chalamoid. Kate said Mekarin. How do you repair it? It says by hutza v'dafta. You put them in the palm branches, and it's sort of like a temporary or a wall, or at least it's not such a permanent structure that you can do on Chalamoid. But see, the Bryce we learned you can use even stones, pile of stones. You don't put any cement. So therefore, that's more like a repair than building a wall. Because a wall, you would cement it because you want it to be there in a permanent way. When do we make these conditions that you can only repair, not build a wall for a garden? If you have a courtyard, and remember in those days in the courtyards, not only they also kept all their possessions there because the houses are very small. As we learned about Bas in the beginning, the houses are very small, so they kept all the possessions there. Then, of course, you're allowed to build a wall to protect your possessions. And also, they're all about hezegri, your privacy. But you can go ahead and build a wall because this is a very big loss. And because people can come and take all your possessions away, according to Rashi, or according to others, just invade your privacy. You have no privacy. And privacy is the most valuable commodity that we have. I'll bring you a proof from a brisa where it says, you have a wall that's sort of bent over and threatening to fall down in a public space. So you could demolish the wall, but you could build it from scratch from the house of Kodesh. So we see clearly from here that a wall surrounding your chutzah, you're allowed to build on Chalamoid. Says the Gemara, that's no proof. Hasam kidding time, it says clearly there's a sakana, because there's a sakana involved. So therefore, it doesn't have any proof in a case where there's no danger that you're allowed to build a wall around the courtyard like Rav Chizah wanted to innovate. However, the others say actually there's a question from there. Toshma says in the Braisa, if it's bent over inches, so you sit up and you can demolish it and rebuild and build it normally. It seems to me the only license to build is because it's posing a danger. But Shalem, unless it wouldn't be posing a danger, you just wanted a wall around your courtyard. On Chalamoid, you cannot build one. In fact, it's a question of Rabbi Chizda who said that a wall for a courtyard is no problem. On the Rabbi Chizda Hassam over there, we're talking about demolishing wall and building a new one. You're doing two activities there. So he said, what we're discussing is one activity, building a wall from scratch. That you could do even if it doesn't pose a danger. Hassam Boina, what I'm referring to is Boina. You want to build a wall around your courtyard, but we're not talking about demolishing at all. Says the Gemara. So if the whole thing is sakana and the wall is threatening to harm people in the street, so just allow him to demolish the wall. Why do we allow him to build a brand new wall? Also, now we list of let's not build a new wall. In case, I think that doesn't have one way or another. Because if we're going to tell people you can break the wall down around your house, around your courtyard, but you cannot build a new one, then why in the world would he demolish it? At least gives him a partial protection around his courtyard. You remove the wall, he has no protection. I.e., posing a danger to the public, but for him, it's a danger to him. And he weighs up the risk. He said, well, in balance, I want the wall up. You are preventing him from going ahead, proceeding and demolishing the wall, which is a threat to the public danger. You would actually bring a proof from our Mishnah. It says, Ubashvius and Shemitah boine kedarka. It says in our Mishnah, but Shemitah you can build a wall. And what are we referring to? Can I be around your garden or around your courtyard? Hey, we're talking about a courtyard. Now, a Shemitah, the only thing you're now doing Shemitah is plant and work with your garden or with your farm. Why do I need a special license to build a wall around my house? Of course, you're allowed to build a wall around the house. You need to tell me that Shemitah you're allowed to build a wall. You're allowed to do whatever you want, Shemitah. It's not Shabbos. It's the only thing that are prohibited, I think, to do with your land. That on Shemitah, that you're allowed to build a wall around your garden, even though it looks like you're protecting your fruits. Around your garden, you're allowed to build a wall. You don't want people to trample and destroy the whole garden, everything else. So, and that's only permitted. That's only permitted in Shemitah, but not in Chalamayit. We're talking about a garden, but a wall around your chutzah, even a Chalamayit, you can go ahead and build your wall. Okay, so we continue now. What we're permitted to do in Chalamayit, we're moving away from farms, and we're talking now about leprosy. Leprosy has a number of stages. The Torah in Parshas Tazria and the Torah talks about there's leprosy on your body, on your clothes, and on your house. We're talking about now on your body, begufe. So on your body, you see some white skin, which is deeper, and actually says that's exactly what that means in the Rashi and Chumash, deeper than your other skin. So we quarantine you, and we monitor it. So we quarantine. It's called the Yemei Hezger. We lock you up, and during that time that we lock you up, you're allowed to have relations with your wife. You're allowed to be according to Rashi. You're allowed to have communications with the public, but you're in isolation. That goes on for 7 days. At the end of 7 days, at the end of Yemei Hezger, the Kohen comes along and he views it again, looks at it again. After the first time he's going to look at it and put you in isolation, looks at it again, and we say as follows: if it became dimmer, in other words, the tzaras is starting to fade away, then you're set free. If it stays the same or worse, then we lock you up for another. It's called Hezger Sheni. We isolate you then another 7 days. Then, or what happens at the end of those 2 weeks if it didn't change? We lock you up. It's called muchlet, or we confine you in a definite way, or even after the first 7 days, if it pasah hanega, it spread. We do now with hechlet. When we lock you up, hechlet, you're not allowed to have any interaction with the community. You have to be bodod, or you have to be on your own in isolation, but you're allowed to have marriage relations with your wife. So that's the period of Yemei Hechlet. The end of Yemei Hechlet, the end of those 7 days, the Kohen comes back, and if he sees that it's starting to fade, he says now he pronounces you Torah. You pronounce you Torah, so the din is you can come back to the community. But what you cannot do now, and now the 7 days that you're counting before you go ahead and do your pigeons and all that, and go to mikveh, is during those 7 days, there's one chumrah. You can't have marriage relations with your wife, as Gemara will learn from there. And we're going to have a fascinating psychological argument in this Gemara here, which I think is just fascinating. The Gemara is trying to understand every human being is a social animal. How do we describe being a social animal? What are our needs, our social needs? Fascinating. Anyway, so the question is on Chalamayit. Now, I don't know if you know, but there's a big discussion amongst the Rishonim if the whole idea of leprosy some say, tsaras, we translate psoriasis. If the whole year leprosy is maisanism, or this is a natural event. But why did the ape should make this natural event? To tell you that because we're learning more erichin, the 7 areas that a person does that causes to have leprosy, or other places it says, just lashon hara, maitzira, and so on. So there are those who say that the whole thing is a maisanism, especially a house. How do you have leprosy in a house or on your clothes? So that's maisanism. No one argues, debates whether leprosy in a house or on your clothing is a ness. Where the debate is in a person's body, is that a normal thing or not? And Chassidus explains beautifully how come today we don't have leprosy. We speak less lashon hara today. Ask the Chafetz Chaim. Well, so why would it be that today we don't have it? Chassidus explains leprosy is very external. It's very external, right? It's on the skin. It's not internal in your body. It's on your skin, which is external to you. And the idea, we're talking about people who are generally tzaddikim in every respect, but they had one fault, one weakness, and it was very external, peripheral to them. So therefore, the leprosy was to cleanse them from that peripheral avera that they were doing, that they were contaminating themselves. Today, unfortunately, we're not at that same level of kedusha, and therefore our problems are not just external but internal as well. And so tzaras won't do it anymore. That's why we don't have tzaras today. But there are those who say that that leprosy is a natural phenomenon. The very fact that you have to be in isolation. Why do you have to be quarantined? Because it's highly contagious. Now, others say that it's not that it definitely is a mice in nest, because we learn in today's Gemara that if, let's say, it's a chas and a kala and Sheva Brachas, we're going to say to the chas, you know what, don't make an appearance to the kohen. Wait after the 7 days before you go ahead to kohen and show imagine you have COVID and we say, don't worry, you go ahead with the chas and make sure you invite the biggest community, as many people as possible, and we'll worry about it after the wedding. We don't want to just interrupt the wedding. Of course not. So they say that on the contrary, leprosy is maisanism, and therefore it's not contagious at all. And that's why in certain instances we're going to delay. Anyway, the debate goes on. So let's see what our Mishnah says. Rabbi says, let's say for the first time, we're wondering whether do you have leprosy, you don't have leprosy. You can invite the kohen to come and see you on Chol Hamoed, and the kohen will only pronounce a conclusion if it's being lenient, saying, don't worry about it, you're tired. If it turns out to be that you are tamei, the kohen gadol won't say a thing. Because according to Meir, it's the kohen gadol's pronunciation as to whether you're tamei or tired that makes it happen. And therefore we tell the kohen, and therefore we tell the kohen, you know what? Don't say anything. Don't make any pronouncements. And again, Chassidus explains why dafka kohen, even a Talmud Chacham who knows the din better than a bigger expert kohen cannot pronounce tamei or only a kohen, because a kohen is a chesed. And before you decide to announce, to go ahead and label somebody tamei, only a person who has sympathy and empathetic and isha chesed has the right to go ahead and say, but in your case, sorry, you're tamei. Anybody else, we don't want to give them that power, that capacity, because they might abuse it. The Chachamim say, the Chachamim say, don't invite the kohen, because once the kohen comes in, the kohen is bound to make a determination, good or bad. So therefore, just stay away. Says the Gemara, we learned. Rameh says, we can invite the kohen to see things if he's going to pronounce that as Torah, but he shouldn't say anything if he's going to be machmer. Rabbi Yeshua agrees. He says, don't invite the kohen at all. Because if we're going to bring the kohen in, and the kohen is going to tell us Torah, if it's Torah, then nishkalach lachman. If the kohen sees tamei, the kohen has no choice but to say tamei. Rabbi says, Rabbi needing divrei Rab Meir b'muzger. I like the words of Rab Meir to be lenient in the case of Muzger, where he is pending, he's sort of, he's segregated and is pending, because then if the Kohen, will soon explain, but the Kohen comes in and says, you are Torah, making life easier. But even the Kohen says, why don't you continue another week or so, and let's further look at it. It's no worse off than what he is right now. So therefore, might as well let the Kohen come in. And but when it comes to a muchlas will follow Rabbi Yossi. When it comes to once the guy has already been already confined to Mitzvah, then I like better Rabbi Yossi's words. Don't bring the kohen in at all, as we'll soon see. Someone explains. Bit Torah, the person is Torah right now, and the question is, did he become a Mitzvah or not? Everyone agrees. Don't invite the kohen in. When it comes to let's say the first period where the kohen says stay in isolation, I'm not 100% sure. Everyone says that the kohen come in. Why let the kohen come in? Because if the kohen comes in at the end of 7 days and says, look, it's fading, Great news. Even the Kohen says, let's stay another 7 days, just to make a determination. He's no worse off than right now. No worse off than right now. Keep pligi. Keep pligi. When are they arguing? They're arguing in a case where the Hezger Sheni. You're now in the second phase, I guess, in the phase of pending. You're now in the second phase, of stage 2. You're locked up a second time. And this time now, if nothing changes, then we have to make you a muchlet. And a muchlet, you can no longer interact with the community at large. So a muchlet is much worse than a musgar. So here already we have an argument. Marasava, the Kohen telling us it's up to the Kohen. If the Kohen sees the guy is fading away, he'll say Torah. If the Kohen sees that it's not fading away at all, and he has to pronounce the tummy, the Kohen will remain mum, won't give any opinion until after Yom Tov is over. Or eat Torah, omelette Torah. Be tummy shasik, he'll be quiet. Marasava says no. Once you bring the Kohen in, the Kohen is compelled to make a ruling. The tahara oile tamaksi, but the Kohen likes or not, he has to make a determination. Either the guy is tummy or the guy is Torah. As we learned, Rebbe says, needing Rabbi Yossi, I like the words of Rabbi Yossi. You said before, Rebbe says, when it comes to muchlet, I like Rabbi Yossi, don't bring the Kohen in because he can make things worse. Now we'll soon see how can make it worse. By muchlet, if the Kohen comes in and sees it fading, the Kohen says, you're tired, isn't that better? Or if nothing changed and continues on, then there's no worse. We'll soon see. But the Divrei Rameh Musgar, when it comes to Musgar, I like Rameh's words, let the Kohen come in. And because if the Kohen comes in, fantastic. If the Kohen says, look, nothing changed, he's no worse off than before. Says the Gemara of Tanya, Ivcha, we learned in another brayso exactly the opposite. The Rebbe liked the words of Rabbi Yossi better by Musgar. Now let the Kohen come. And by Muchlet, he likes Rameh. Don't say anything because he holds that Muchlet is worse than Musgar. What's going on here? Says the Gemara, Tanoi Liba Rameh. The two opinions according to Rebbe. Now, this is the interesting thing. In the time of Muchlet, he can be with his wife, but he cannot interact with the rest of the community. In the time that he is now after the Muchlet, and they say, okay, you are tired, he has now to count 7 days, there's exactly the opposite. And that is that he's no longer allowed to be with his wife, but he's allowed to be with the community. And the question, the argument of the Gemara is, what would a person prefer? Let's say we give you an option. You can either interact with your wife, but you would deny the interactivity with the rest of the community, or the other way around. You can be with anybody you want, but you cannot have marital relations with your wife. Which do you find worse? What are people's cravings to associate as a social animal, to be with everybody? And if it comes at the expense of being with his wife, so be it. Especially short term, or the other way around. He doesn't mind having to sever his ties to the whole community as long as he can be with his wife. Very interesting discussion. So my one opinion is Safsa the Alma Odiv. One opinion is it's better for him to be with the community. So for him at the end of Muchlet, if the Kohen comes in and says, Tahir, if the Kohen comes in and says tired, so now he can no longer be with his wife, but he can be with everybody else. And that is great news. So therefore, he likes Rabbi Yossi's words when it comes to Muchlet. Let the Kohen come in and let the chips fall where they fall, because it can't be any worse and it could even be better. But a Marsav, the other time, all the way around. Safsad Isha differently. Don't come in when he's Muchlet and to determine whether he's tired or not. If he comes at the end of Muchlet and says he's tired, he'll no longer be with his wife. And that's terrible. But during Musgar, let him come in. If he's tired, fine, he's tired. He can be with everybody. And if he's tired, he's no worse off than before. The memory Gemara says, so what are you telling me? The Muchlet mutter betachvish amiter, while in the stage of Muchlet, where he can no longer interact with the rest of the community, he's allowed to be with his wife. It's only after he becomes tired that now he can no longer be with his wife. He has to count 7 days. The memory, the Muchlet mutter, how do you know that? Yes. Because with Tanya, we learned, it says in Pasuk, he has to know at the end of his period, he shaves all of his hair, and he has to then go take his clothes and put it in the mikveh, and he himself goes to the mikveh, and then he can come back and join the machna, and he sits outside of his tent for 7 days. It says in the Pasuk, Yoshav mechutz la'olav, he should sit outside his tent 7 days. And what do you mean outside of his tent? His tent is his home. To be outside of his home, in other words, not to have a marital relationship. Also, because they ain't all at least it could be no. Your tent is your home, which is your wife. It says the Matan Torah. It says, tell them now when the Matan Torah is over. Lech emolehem. Tell the people. You told them initially 3 days to separate from their wives. Now tell them shuvu lachem la'alech. Go back to your wives. So the oil is symbolic of a person's relationship with his wife, and therefore during the time, the 7 days, accounting by after the Torah becomes Torah, he's not allowed to be with his wife. Rabbi Yehuda says, I have another pasuk. It says after he becomes Torah, 7 days he has to count. Shivas Yomim Yisapru Lo, he has to count to himself. So we say, Yemei Sefira V'lo Yemei Chaluti. When does he have to count to be separate from his wife? Only the time of the Sefira after he finishes period of Mukhlit now, he's coming clean. He has to count 7 Kli days. He's not having any relationship with his wife. But during the time of Chalat, he's allowed to. And Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda says, he disagrees. He said, Zayin Yemei Sefira Madach, when he's becoming Toy. He cannot be with his wife. Surely when he is tamei to the whole world, surely he shouldn't be with his wife. So we have an argument whether a mitzvah while he's muchli, when he's definitely confined and quarantined, is allowed to have marital relations. And Rebbe holds he allowed to. I once had a discussion with Rebbe. He told us that King Yosem, when did Uzziah, who was a leper, have his son Yosem? When did he impregnate his wife with his son Yosem, who later succeeded and became the king? Was the time of Mechlut. He was a Mitzvah, and the time that he was not allowed to be with anybody, he had relations with his wife. And if it would have been in sin, they would never have anointed Yosem as becoming the successor and becoming the next monarch, because he's born in sin. So Rebbe said, you're right. I agree with you. During Yemei Chalut, I agree with Rabbi Yehuda. That during Yemei Chalut, he's allowed to be with his wife. It's only during Yemei Sefira he's not allowed to be with his wife. Says what exactly is the crux of the argument? Rabbi Yehuda says that it's forbidden not only in the times of Torah but at the times of Tum as well. He says Goli Rachman and Meisifida. The Torah says when you're allowed to interact with the rest of this community society, and you're becoming Torah, in the process of becoming Torah. I don't want you to be with your wife. So Koshke surely you make halutta when he can't have. That's a distance from everybody. But has to be in isolation. Surely he has to be in isolation from his wife. Umar Savar, and everyone else holds, my de Goli. The Torah told us he's not allowed to be with his wife during the 7 days that he's coming out of his tumah. Okay. But my de Goli, during the Mechalut, it doesn't mention a word about him being with his wife, so therefore it doesn't count. Says the Gemara, remember, so what he's saying, are you telling me, based on what everything we learned now, it seems, even if it's quite obvious that the person has tzaras, he does not become a Mitzvah, he's not classified as a Mitzvah until the Kohen makes that pronunciation. How do we know that? Remember, the Kohen Talimilsa, it's all up to the Kohen whether he is tummy or not. Ask the question. Yes, that is correct. Because you learn, it says the pasuk, "Ubiyoim heiroz boy," and at the day that you show it to the kohen, what? And the pasuk says he becomes tamei. Women at the day. Yes, yoim sha'ataroi boy, v'yesh yom sha'ataroi boy. It's up. It depends if it's a day or not. In other words, if the kohen, certain days you don't have to even show it to the kohen, and if you didn't show the kohen, the guy stays tight, clear. Here we learn now, for example, a chosn shenoilid by nega. Chosn is about to get married and suddenly he has signs of leprosy. We give him 7 days of the party for himself. We're not going to examine himself, nor do we examine his house if there's leprosy there, nor do we examine his clothes. Let him enjoy himself. So this is the proof that even Loi himself, it's ma'asenissim according to those, because otherwise, if it's contagious, what do you mean? Let's say Yom Tov, an issue arises, don't approach the Kohen till after Yom Tov. You wait till after Yom Tov. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi says, I don't need that pasuk. I'll tell you very simple. It says in the pasuk, if you find signs of leprosy in the house, it says, before the kohen goes to examine the house, the kohen will instruct. He says, "Finu is a bias. I want you to remove all the belongings from the house, because once I pronounce the house tummy, so to everything in the house becomes tummy as well. So take it out, but remove them before I get there." Okay, but now this is talking about leprosy on the house, which everyone agrees is ma'asenissim, and we're going to draw a parallel to leprosy on your own body. So these are things that are not mitzvahs involved here. Okay, regel is a mitzvah, getting married, is a mitzvah, Mishnah is a mitzvah, okay. But here we're talking about the kohen says, I'll wait a day or so, remove everything from the house. So we wait and pause for the kohen to arrive for things that are not so critical. Surely, if we're talking about a wedding or a regel, we say wait Don't bring the kohen in, not only for the house or the clothes, where you're going to say, even for his own body, wait. My benai, what's the difference if you learn from the pasuk uve yom heiros, or if you learn from a kavuchayim from the house? So Rashi Abai says no difference. It's where they learn it from, but otherwise it makes no difference. However, Rava says they're arguing about on your own body for the reason why you want to pause or you want to delay the kohen is because you want to do something with your body, whatever it is. If you want to do something, but it's not Yom Tov, it's not Shivas Yemei Mishnah, it's something Rishus. That's the difference. Because if you learn from Pinus Abayis, which is Davar Rishus, same thing applies here as well. Even for your own body, if you want to do something, I need to do something before I invite the Kohen, before I go to quarantine, you can do so. But if you are learning from V'yayim Heiroz Bai, all we know is that it comes to a mitzvah, we can delay. It comes to a Rishus, who said that you can delay? Okay, something about further. Rabbi Yehuda says, I'm not going to learn from a Finus Abayis. Why? The Chiddush, the whole idea that a house becomes Tameh is a Chiddush. And the way the Gemara says, it's not so much the house. So the way Rashi learns is generally flat, when it comes to wood, flat things don't become Tameh. Here, anything inside the house becomes Tameh. Others say the Chiddush is the house doesn't get tzaras. Wood and stones don't generally become tummy and don't get tzaras, and the whole thing is a chiddush. Therefore, you cannot learn from there to a body. I guess if you're going to learn that it's the whole thing is ma'is and nisim, then there's no difference between whether it's tzaras on the house or tzaras on the body. They're both ma'is and nisim. So Rashi said the difference is that wood generally flat pieces of wood don't become tummy, and here it does. So because Abida says there's a chiddush, you cannot draw any parallels from there and say because by a house, so therefore the same thing applies to a person. But Rebbe says, no, I need both. I need the pasuk of the Yom Heiraz, but I need the also the limud from a house. The ikas rachman of the Yom Heiraz, but if all I knew was the day that you visit, you show it to the kohen. I never thought the only thing you could delay for is mitzvahs, but not for davar rishus. Therefore, the Torah brings the other pasuk about a house to tell you that even davar rishus is delay. And once we know that you can delay the kohen, and then we go back to the case of the house. You can delay a kohen even for matters of rishus. We go back to the person and say, well, since over here also you can delay the kohen, why should there be a difference between rishus? So we need both. I would, if I only knew the pasuk about the house, I would say only here in this case because it's a remote to this tzaras. The whole thing is so nice and so supernatural. Therefore, we're limited only to that. But if let's say you have two in the gufa, you got to show it straight away, maybe because it's contagious or maybe because it's much stricter. Therefore, we need both. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, learning why about these different sukkim, how we learn at Tzaras. So everyone have a good